Jason and Dan met in the back of an art room in high school, if you believe it. They started drawing together and have never stopped. They both attended the Rhode Island School of Design and then moved to New York City to begin their world conquest. They now join us today from Vermont and New Jersey. It's absolutely no surprise that Barb and the Ghost Blade has quickly become a favorite here at RJ Julia. Our very own Jamie says that despite the caveman outfit, Barb is like any modern girl, fighting for equal opportunity and freedom because it's the right thing to do. Her second adventure is every bit as hilarious and exciting as the first. So without further ado, I am going to pass things over to our guests of honor. Take it away, Dan and Jason.
Hey, thank you so much. That was such a great introduction. We really appreciate it. I'm Dan.
Hey, I'm Jason.
And yeah, we're so happy to be here to tell you about Barb and the Ghost Blade. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the first book so you kind of know where we're going with Barb and the Ghost Blade. And then Jason's going to read a little bit. And then I think we're going to do some like drawing tutorials so we can show you how we like to draw Barb and her best friend Porkchop. And while we're doing that, we'll answer some questions too. So yeah. So in the first book, Barb and the Last Berserker, Barb is essentially on a quest to join this noble band of warriors called Berserkers. And as she's doing that, I'm sorry, is that super loud, Jason? Can you hear that?
It sounds like Porkchop is trying to get into your refrigerator.
Yeah, sorry about that. Here, let me pause for 1 second, okay? I'm sorry.
I can keep going too if you want to.
Yeah, Jason, you keep going.
Okay. Yeah. So Barb is this tough kid who is totally fighting for the right thing, right? She's trying to look out for people, and she kind of finds herself in the middle of a war between humans and monsters in this fantastical world called Bailiwick. And she's on the side of the humans, and her whole job is to fight monsters. But in book one, she befriends this 300-pound yeti named Porkchop, and they become friends. And their friendship kind of changes Barb's outlook on this war, and she kind of finds this new way to kind of solve this conflict. And she forms this new band of berserkers that's humans and monsters, and they're kind of at the end of book one going off to find Franny Flamefingers in this monster city called Moghorn, to hopefully put an end to Witchhead, who's this evil wizard's plan of world domination.
That sounded fantastic. That sounded really good. Thanks for allowing me to jump out for a second.
Yeah, no sweat. Was it Porkchop? Is he real?
It was Porkchop. He's got some new kielbasa he wants to share, so we're gonna put that on the grill later today.
I wanted to jump into the reading, or I don't know. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, no, that's cool. That sounded really good. You do some reading, and then I'll hop back in for the drawing. Okay,
man. So I'm gonna share screens, and then let's see if this works. How's that look, Dan? Does that look good? Can you still hear me? Okay, I think you're on mute. But anyway, yeah, so here we are in a tavern in Moghorn, and we see some monsters sloppily eating their food and talking. I'm telling you, Slurp, Bill, she's the only one left. Zerks are toast. Not what I heard, Squeak. I heard she stole something from Squeak, the evil wizard Witchhead, a magic sword, the shadow blade, Squeak. And he's waving this like chicken wing around on his fork. Watch where you're waving that drumstick. It's rude, she says as she chews with her mouth open. Ah, that sword is just a legend. Besides, what can one Zerk do? But that's just it. Word is she's not alone. Squeak. She's recruited, Squeak, a new band of Zerks. And guess where they're headed? Here. Spatui. Here. Berserkers are headed to Chapter 1, Moghorn. So that's the name of the monster city. And here we see some raspberry farmers you might recognize from book one. And they're planting a new crop of raspberries. There, that's the last raspberry seed planted. Patches, you see like a shadow is creeping in. Okay, razzleberry farmers, prepare to witness the power of my snot launcher. Ha 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 ha. Nice work, Flemmy. Who knew your snot launcher would work so well to water a new crop of razzleberries? Yay, hooray! And also in book 1, so the razzleberry farmers were totally being bullied by these snot goblins, but now they're like best friends and they're working together. It's kind of a cool reversal of fortune. Cheers to a new partnership between humans and monsters. Guys, hey, and this hand comes in, tap, tap, tap. This party is over. Smash. And here's this Shadow Reaper who used to be Thunder, who used to be a good guy, and now he's like trashing everything. Snot goblins, unleash the snot. On it, Flemmy. Crack, brack, snap. This ball and chain comes whizzing in. Funk Boulder, who's now also a Shadow Reaper, catches it. If anyone else moves, we'll break more than their weapons. We're just humble farmers. We have nothing except delicious berries. We seek Barb. Where is she? Barb? We'll never betray Barb. Talk or fall. Your choice, farmer. That's kind of like my, my Batman voice. His little hat falls off. I would fall 1,000 times for Barb. So be it. And he drops him. Ah! But then this bat flies in. Scree, 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 scree. It's talking in bat talk, I guess. Bat, you found Barb? Funk, he catches their little razzleberry farmer whose name is Patches because he has an eye patch. He's like, huh? Put him in the wagon with the others. We're going to Moghorn. Hurry, Barb, hurry. So Patches is really worried about Barb. And now we cut to this mountain pass and we see our Zerk heroes all walking along this narrow ravine. All this walking is killing Grom's feet. Snort, we know, Grom. You've been telling us about them for the last 5 hours. Snort, hey, where's Barb? Actually, looks like she's running up that cliff. So they're all exhausted, but here's Barb and she's climbing. She never gets tired. She's climbing up this rock face and we see her looking out over this cliff. We're so close, I can see the gates of Moghorn. Side note, I've started talking to myself again. Barb, puff, puff, puff. Porkchop's climbing up behind her. Yo, P, check out this amazing view. Looks great. So the gang wanted to tell, one second, hair's suddenly getting thin. Sure, P, you okay? Totally fine. Gasp. You should really sit down, Porkchop. He just fell down on the ground. What is going on? When the gang wanted to tell you, we're all a tiny bit tired. Oh yeah, totally. Let's take a break. Perfect. They're already setting up camp. Grom picked it. Okay, where? Just off the road. He sat down and couldn't get back up. And then we cut to their little campsite and Grom's picking rocks out of his feet. Ouch, Grom's feet are killing him. Hey, Thump, watch where you're putting those stinky things. Listen, sweetie, his stinky feet are the least of your problems. What's that supposed to mean? And don't call me sweetie. Can we please stop talking about Grom's foot odor? That was kind of a thing in book 1 too. His feet were kind of smelly. These lands are ruled by a ruthless gang called the Marauders. They don't scare me. Crack. Marauders! Snort! Snort! I knew it was Barb the whole time. Yo, Zerks, guess what? Barb! It's not more sausages. I already guessed that. Even better. I found a way through these canyons. We'll be in Moghorn soon. So now we can sit back and just relax. And then I hear this scream. Ah! Somewhere else on this pass, there's a wagon being held up by these goons. Silence, monster scum. These lands belong to the infamous Marauders. Now pay up or else. I've never heard of you before. What? And she knows everyone. Are you sure? Positive. It won't matter. Huh? He looks up. And there's Barb. These thugs won't be around for long. We're berserkers. Taking out bullies is our jam. Berserkers. We've heard of them. Zerks. We are happy to share some of the spoils from these filthy monsters. See, he's still under the impression that all berserkers are fighting monsters, but Barb is a new kind of berserker. Hey, who are you calling filthy? Grom, watch the edge. Is this about Grom's feet? Crumble. Ah! Grom's falling down. Hang on, Grom. Snort. Sploop. Slimejaw shoots a string shot. Fire. It zings down and hits Grom on the top of his head. Splump. I got him. Snort. But who's got you? Slimejaw gets pulled off the edge of the cliff. He's pulling us over. Barb grabs Slimejaw. Porkchop grabs Barb. They just barely managed to stop Grom from falling off the cliff. Grom, you okay? Yup. So these berserkers are clowns? On 3, we pull them up. Side note, P, you have a huge spider on your arm. What? Spider! Get it off! Oh no, they all fall over the cliff. Ah! Everyone okay? They all catch each other's arms. Yup. Grom says yup. What is a Zerk doing hanging around with monsters? On second thought, I don't really care. Any last words? Yeah. Give me the power. I am Berserker. Krakoom. What? Grom is going up. They land. You dudes, stay back. I'll handle these goons. But Katie's like, Barb. She sees everyone's falling, including Grom. It's raining giants. He's going to follow that little wagon. Oh, nuts. But Barb uses her super strength to grab the people on the wagon just before Grom smashes it. Barthoom. You're safe. Our wagon isn't. We nearly paid it off. Snort. Marauders are escaping. I'll catch those thugs. No, P. Let them go. We lost this one, Zerks. Snort. It'd be easier if we all had magic swords. Magic swords have their downsides too. Try to fix the wagon. I gotta sit and rest. So part of the thing with the Shadow Blade, which is how Barb uses her superpowers, is it totally wipes her out and makes her tired afterwards. Ugh, tired. Grom. This one goes there. That one goes there. Suddenly the sword starts to glow. Barb. Whoa, sweetie, it's me. Mom. My love, we don't have much time. You must find Franny Flamefingers soon. A battle is coming, and to have any hope of winning, you need the wise wizards. Franny Flamefingers can summon them. Battle with who? Witchhead is just one dude. Not for long. Witchhead has found another portal. He's going to bring an army to your world, an army with one purpose, the destruction of Bailiwick. And then we see the Barb sleeping. So this is all happening in like a dream. Psst, Barb, army coming. I know I'm not supposed to wake a sleeping. Sir, sorry. Oh, it's you. Saved you some pancakes. Thanks, P. Guess I dozed off. How's the crew? And then we see them all sitting around the campfire. Grom is sad. Porkchop messed everything up. What? You kind of did, dude. You're scared of spiders? Seriously? They're all like legs and eyeballs. Ugh. It's not all Porkchop's fault. Dudes, we're Zerks. We win together, and if we lose, we do that together too. Was your first day as a Zerk as bad as Porkchop's? Jeez, Kate, or was it? Okay, gang, story time. Sweet, Barb stories are rad. My first day as a Zerk. Okay, maybe we'll stop it there.
Nice job, man. That was awesome. That was so good.
Oh, it was fun.
Super fun. Those first couple chapters, they get me every time. I love how it's like you're going to all these different landscapes, right? You start in like Moghorn and that tavern, which is like classic beginning of adventure, starting in a tavern, and then you're going to the Razzleberry Farm, and then the new Zerks on the road, and like you see the caverns. It's like, I don't know, that's one of my favorite things about fantasies is that like it gets to take you to all these different places, and it feels like in those first 2 chapters, like you're really just bouncing all around Bailiwick. It's so fun, and there's like comedy and adventure. I don't know, you did a great job reading it. That was awesome. That was really good.
Thanks, man. No, it's super fun to read it. I like doing the squeaks.
Yeah, so fun.
What's that guy's name? Bill or something?
Yeah, Bill and Jill.
Yeah, Bill and Jill. Yeah, they're great.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, do you want to share and start drawing?
Yeah, I'll start doing some drawing, and I think we can answer some questions as I'm drawing. So can you see my screen?
Yep. Okay,
cool. So
it's just a white box.
I know it just starts with this terrifying white box.
Yeah.
So, and you guys can kind of see like this is kind of how we lay out our pages too, how we do our drawings for the comic book. Is I'll start with a rough, and then I'll show you how we clean it up. So we'll do Barb and the Ghost Blade.
Yeah, one thing that's really fun about comics is like the way Dan and I write and draw, we do everything together. We kind of like, I think we were talking about this earlier before it started, but it's kind of like a tennis match. Not that either of us are any good at tennis, but it's like we're always bouncing the little ball back and forth, and the ball being the metaphor for the story. But what's cool about comics is like it starts off as just like words and ideas that you're kind of just writing down, but pretty soon, before the story is completely solid, we start like sketching stuff out, and it's a process we call thumbs. And it's basically, it's like Dan's drawing, and it's the whole comic is just sketched out, super rough. And it kind of allows you to like look at the story and try to get a sense of the pacing and like, is everything adding up? Are we calling Bill and Jill through the whole story, or do their names change around, which happens? In book 2, we had a huge problem with Thunder's straps. Like we had to go back and redraw Thunder's straps probably 3 times.
I know we love story and like we love telling stories, but the details sometimes aren't like, we're not the best about details. But you know who loves details? Our readers. And readers let us know when like the straps were on the wrong arms or like we messed stuff up. So it's really important to get that stuff right.
Yeah, it is. It's super important. I wish that it wasn't, because like Dan said, we're not very good at it, but it's something that helps kind of maintain the world. It kind of makes the world feel real. And it is real. If you get all those little details right, it really becomes a real world you can kind of live in and hang out. Which is kind of like one of Dan and I's favorite things about comics, like especially when we were, kids in high school or middle school. Like reading Tintin or Calvin and Hobbes or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was like getting to step into another world. And you could forget about like spelling tests and fractions and I don't know, whatever was going on in your life. You could disappear and become a Ninja Turtle or Calvin and laugh and have fun and be silly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really like, I don't know. And I think stories are really important, and like fantasy, and it kind of like, it just ends up, they're kind of like little examples of like what a hero can be and who can be a hero. And like, I don't know, there's something that I love about Barb, and thinking about like, my own kids reading Barb and like, and friends of my kids reading Barb and seeing that like, oh, like they can be a hero too. It's like heroes come in all different kinds of shapes and sizes.
Yeah. No, totally. It's like Barb is, I mean, it's awesome that she's a girl. I think Dan and I grew up in homes where girls were really super strong. Like our moms are super strong. We had super strong, girlfriends, and my sister was like, she was actually really good at tennis. She was an awesome, super athlete. But it's like when you go into comic stores, there aren't a lot of super cool, strong girl characters. So I think Dan and I really were like, this Barb is a cool girl character that, boys will totally love reading about her, but girls will too. And it's like Dan was saying, it's like important to be like, the weight of the world rests on everybody's shoulders. Everybody can be a hero and stand up and kind of save the day. And
yeah, it's like you kind of need to see it for it to be possible too, right? It's like you need to see that, like, even if it's in just a silly comic book, I don't know, something about it seems like it starts to make it real.
Yeah, and another thing I totally love about Barb too is that because she is a kid, like people refer to her as a kid, she's still like figuring things out. And I feel like that's like one of kids' superpowers is that they're always asking questions, right? They're like, what's a dinosaur? What's an amoeba? Like the world is this amazing, almost a fantasy world for them because it's so new to them, and they're always questioning things. It's like, why did this bad thing happen? Like that doesn't seem right. And I feel like as a grown-up, a bad thing happens, you're like, well, they just happen, that's how the world works. But kids are like, no, that's not cool, that we got to stop that. And so I feel like a kid as a hero is a great combination because she doesn't totally understand what's going on. Like she doesn't know the history of the wise wizards or like how old this war. She just sees it as like, why are we judging these monsters before even getting to know them? Like that seems silly. So she discovers this cool solution to the problem that no one else had kind of thought to question.
I think that's totally spot on. And it's like, as a parent, it's like one of like the best, but also like most frustrating things about being a parent is that like I do feel like my kids are questioning every single thing, but it's also like what makes them amazing, right? It's like they're not taking all this stuff for granted, and it makes you kind of also like reconsider, like, are we doing this the best way? Like, is this the smartest way to do it? I don't know. A lot of this stuff should be questioned.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's like, you know, when Dan and I were in high school, we were kind of like a little bit quiet and nerdy, and I, for one, was super averse to conflict. Like, I did not want to get in the middle of stuff. I was a little scared. But, you know, creating a character like Barb, like that's Barb's jam, is like getting in the middle of stuff. Like if something's wrong, she's gonna jump in and be like, you know, dude, you gotta chill out, and or else someone's gonna get hurt, and it's not gonna be me. You know, she's super tough too. So it's been fun to like kind of live in that character and follow that character through this story. And it does feel like the way Dan and I are writing the story is we kind of think of it as an adventure we're going on along with the reader. We just happen to get to go on it first. And we get to parts of the story and we're like, we don't really know exactly what's going to happen, but you know, we trust in Barb, and we'll kind of sometimes ask, like, what would Barb do in this situation? Like in book one, I don't know, Dan, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Like, so we were writing the book one, and we kind of got to the end where Barb is facing down against Grom. It's like at that point, her and Grom aren't friends yet, and they're like in essentially like this duel, right? This like battle to the death, and she uses her berserker power and knocks Grom into this pit of mud, and Grom is like so full of anger and fury that he won't let go of this giant like war hammer that he has. He's like sinking in the mud, and Barb's like, let go of it, and he won't do it, but then he just like sinks and disappears, and we were like, okay, that's the end of the story. You know, like that, Barb wins.
Kind of a bummer about Grom, but you know what, he sunk in the mud, he didn't listen.
I mean, it's kind of crazy now when we think about it, that that's actually how we were going to end it, but like after reading it, we were like, wait a second, this isn't right. Like Barb's just going to sit back and let this guy drown, you know, like that doesn't seem right. So and
I was like, Dan, but she warned him, so I think it's over. And Dan's like, no, Barb would not do that. And I was like, what?
But it was kind of this amazing moment for us where it's like all of a sudden Barb was kind of telling us which way the story should go, you know? So we like rethunk the whole end, and like Barb takes off her headband and ties up her hair in a bun and jumps into the mud, and she sinks down, and she does the thing that she's like that's really dangerous, that she's really not supposed to do, which is use the shadow blade 2 times in a row. It's like you can really only use it once without resting because it's such powerful shadow magic. But she does it again, and it like she gets enough strength to save Grom. But it was kind of this breakthrough moment, you know. It was like, oh, Barb's gonna do the right thing. Like Barb kind of has this like moral compass inside, and we should listen to it too.
Yeah, totally. And it was a great writing lesson for us too, in that I think your job, and if you guys are making your own stories and writing your own adventures, it's like you can figure out some of it, but you can't figure out all of it. You have to kind of write it and see it and kind of live in it. And that's, you kind of have to trust the process a little bit. And then I feel like that's the best part about writing, is like the surprises that you can even surprise yourself. And when they come out of character, it's totally the best.
Totally. Like I feel like I really want everything to be outlined and figured out, and for there to be no surprises, and to be very like ordered and clear, you know. But that's kind of not very much fun. And Jason, I feel like, is really good at like improvising and adding stuff and coming up with stuff on the spot, and it makes the stories way more interesting and more fun. And it's kind of more fun as the process of writing too. It's like you kind of are like getting surprised, and you're on the, as Jason was saying earlier, it's like you're on the adventure as well, which is really fun. So this is Barb and the Ghost Blade.
That's an awesome drawing. That's really great. It's so cool.
Should I do a pork chop?
Yeah, totally do a pork chop if you're up for it.
Yeah, I'm up for it. Maybe I'll draw them like kind of like next to Barb over here.
Yeah, I mean, we draw everything in Photoshop, and that's what Dan's working on right now. And you can kind of, I think you can see his little window, but like Dan's drawing directly on the screen, which is great because I mean, Dan and I like computers, but we don't fully understand complex computer software and stuff like that. But the computers have gotten really good where it's like drawing, you know, like the drawing we used to do in high school. And we've come to decide that we really love like the line quality. Like I love how alive Dan's lines are. And like when I say alive, it's like they're not like straight lines like a ruler would make, but they're like a little bit wobbly. Like somebody who drinks a lot of coffee and stays up late would make, like me and Dan. But it also like kind of makes the drawings come to life. Another great example of that is Eastman and Liard's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like those drawings aren't perfect. Like the anatomy is sometimes a little weird, but it's like they're really alive and you feel that somebody actually drew them. Same with Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah, I feel like that was like kind of like as we've become older drawers, like that was something that was really huge for me, was like, oh, it's not about it being perfect. It's really just about telling the story, or you know, it's like, and sometimes it's the imperfections that make it fun. Which is like, you know, when I was younger, I think I was constantly feeling discouraged that didn't look as good as like, you know, my favorite artists. But that's okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're trying to tell your story. You're not trying to tell somebody else's story. And so it can be kind of anything you want, which is kind of terrifying, like that white box that Dan started on. But it's also kind of awesome. It's like you don't have to get in your own way and be like, these drawings aren't good enough, or these drawings need to be like more anatomically correct, or the perspective's off. Like there's a million reasons you can be like, this isn't working. But if it feels right and it's telling the story, which is kind of the most important thing for drawings in a comic book to be doing, then it's totally working. And like the thumbs, like Dan's doing another thumb of Porkchop. But one of the fun things about you're drawing a thumb is it's a drawing no one's going to see. So you're kind of like off the hook. So sometimes the thumbs have like a lot more life and personality. And when we go to ink, which is the second step, we didn't actually tell you when Dan started doing that, but he's like putting the black lines on top of everything. And those are the lines you actually see in the comic. But sometimes you lose stuff. You kind of like, as you're inking, you're like, it's sharper and clearer and you can tell who the character is and it's doing all of that stuff that it has to do, but it sometimes loses some of the, you know, that kind of liveliness.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. So yeah, so this thumb, like, so this is kind of, you know, a sketch or a thumb of Porkchop eating this big like sandwich as Barb's doing her ghost blade magic. Now I'll ink it.
It's like Porkchop's like, Barb, I don't want my sandwich heated up. I want it cold.
Yeah, this is an Italian sub. It's supposed to be cold.
Yeah, get that thing away from me and my sandwich. But one thing that talking about, and this is a good segue into Porkchop. Like Porkchop is a fun character, and it's funny. The first time we were breaking the outline for book one, she doesn't meet Porkchop until like halfway through the story. And those early chapters were super flat, like they just weren't working. There like wasn't a life to them. And we kind of eventually figured out that Porkchop is really a really important counterbalance to Barb. It's like in Tintin, there's Tintin, who's kind of the good guy square, and then there's Captain Haddock. And Captain Haddock is kind of crazy and fun, but the two of them together create this fun tension because they kind of want different things, but they're on the same team. So Porkchop and Barb are totally those characters, or versions of those characters. But you know, Porkchop is selfish. He is a monster, which is different. He's also a thief. He steals things, versus Barb, who just like puts her life on the line to save people she doesn't even know. So they totally come up problems totally differently. One of my favorite scenes in Ghostblade is when Barb and Porkchop are walking through the streets of Moghorn, and Barb sees this belt and she's like, oh my gosh, that's such a cool belt. She totally wants the belt and she tries it on and it looks awesome, but then she realizes she's totally broke. She has no money whatsoever. And she's like, oh well, and she kind of forgets about it. And then a little bit later, Porkchop's like, hey, I got you that belt. And she's like, whoa, Porkchop, I didn't know you had any money. Thank you. And he's like, no, it was free. She's like, wait, he gave it to you for free? And Porkchop's like, no, he's not going to give it to me for free. I had to steal it. And Barb's like, what? But it's like, and anyway, Porkchop ends up returning it because he feels bad, and but it shows like he's trying to do something nice, but he's like stealing, which is wrong. You know, he's kind of doing it. The way he approaches problems is not super lawful, but his heart was in the right place. But it's a sweet little tiny scene that shows their different like takes on, you know, life.
Yeah, it's like Porkchop's whole thing is like he's kind of like whatever feels good, right? It's like if napping feels good, or stopping for snacks feels good, or stealing this thing is going to make him or his friend happy, he'll kind of do it. And it's like, it's a great foil for Barb, who's kind of has this sense of justice and has this sense of like of duty and what's right and wrong. It's like they're always bouncing off each other.
Yeah, it's totally. Sometimes Dan and I, we used to work in animation in New York City together. We used to actually basically share a cubicle. We were like 4 inches apart, and we would put in such long hours, and we'd work really hard on these commercials and stuff. And it was super fun. You'd work with this really inspiring team, but every once in a while, Dan and I would kind of look at each other, and we'd be like, we got to get out of here. We got to take a break. And we'd go and sneak out and go to a movie. But it was so much fun. We'd go to like a matinee and get a bunch of popcorn, and we're like supposed to be working, but we're watching, you know, whatever, the latest Star Wars movie or Thor Ragnarok or something awesome.
Those are kind of the best movies.
Yeah. It's totally like sometimes you have to give yourself a break and just, you know what, I got to get out of here and just do something that's totally mindless. But that's totally the Porkchop side of our existence.
Yeah, if you guys have to sneak out someplace and read a Barb comic, I feel like that might be the best Barb reading you'll ever have.
Yeah, it's true. Like doing something fun when you're not supposed to be doing something fun makes it even more fun sometimes. But anyway, yeah, no, that's awesome. That's an awesome ink. That's an awesome Porkchop.
Nice, thanks.
I guess one other thing, not one other thing, but another thing that I love about the world of Barb is Bailiwick, which is the kind of the fantasy world where all the action takes place. But I think one of our inspirations for making Barb was like Westerns. And one of the cool things about Westerns is like the town, right? The town or the part of the West where the adventure takes place. And it's like, usually it's like a little beat up. It's like people are a little bit unhappy. There's like some misery, you know, all great things for a kid's comic. But I think with a little bit of humor, we're able to kind of like give Bailiwick a feel and a flavor. And one of the characters that really kind of encapsulates that is the sausage peddler. And he's just this kind of grumpy guy. He's always late, and he's got this cart of sausages. He doesn't even seem to like sausages, and he just wants to, you know, sell as many as he can. He's kind of this miserable character, and he hates monsters because monsters sometimes steal his stuff, like Porkchop stole his stuff. But he's kind of this fun, kind of grizzled old character that I don't know. It kind of makes the world feel real. And it also gives Barb being good and kind something to push against too, right? The world is a little broken and a little sad. It gives her something to do in terms of like saving it.
Yeah, I love how in book one, when they first meet the sausage peddler, he's all like, woe is me. He's like crying in the woods, you know? He's like, someone stole my sausages. And he's like kind of this big victim, right? And then as you get to know him, he's like kind of a jerk. He's like not a nice guy. He's like kind of trying to trick Porkchop, and like, I don't know, he just seems like he's a little bit sneaky. But then like as things progress, it's like he kind of starts to come around, you know? It's like he sees that like, oh, monsters are just like people and are just like humans. And I don't know, it's like he has his own fun little arc, which I think is really great.
Yeah, remember Dan and I would sometimes ride our bikes home from work. And it was cool. We lived in different parts of Brooklyn, but we could basically ride home together like for a good chunk of the way. And I remember we're riding home, and this guy in a car like cut Dan off, and he had to stop and almost fell off his bike. And I was like, oh man, Dan, are you okay? And I was like, that's a bummer. We should keep going. And Dan's like, no, I want to tell that guy he needs to watch where he's going. And so I think like Dan yelled at the guy, and the guy kind of drove off. I don't even think he knew, but I was like, Dan, what are you going to straighten out everybody in New York City? There's like 8 million people here. And Dan's like, I know, I'm going to just straighten out this one guy. But I feel like there's a lot of of Barb in that moment from Dan, because I would just be like, oh man, it's a bummer, but what can you do? But Dan's like, no, I'm gonna teach this guy a lesson. I feel like
yeah.
it's like one goofball at a time. But I think, yeah, in the time Dan was in New York, I think he probably fixed a few people.
I don't know. I'm not sure if my straightening out ever worked. I don't think it ever really stuck. But I mean, I think it's like, it's funny, like in real life, I don't think that's a good idea. You know, it's like, it's like, no one, you can't really straighten anyone out by yelling at them on your bike. But in Bailiwick, Barb is straightening people out, right? It's like, she's really giving it her all, and like, she's taking care of business in a way that I never could.
Yeah, she's good people.
Yeah. And so this is what we do. So after we thumb it, then we clean it, and then we color it. Well, and what we call this is flatting. It's like we'll put flat colors down to just kind of like get like the main colors. And then after that, we'll go in and we'll do highlights and lowlights, and sometimes we'll even add a little texture. So you guys are kind of getting the whole. So now that I have like my flat colors down, I can go and start adding a little bit more detail. But I did see there's a question up there from Patrick. What is one quality in Barb that you wish you had yourself? Conversely, what qualities of yours do you think Barb wishes she had? Oh, that's a great question.
We kind of almost answered that one with the bike story, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it is like standing up for other people. I think that's in people you don't know. I think it's important to stand up for people. I think there's lots of times, and at least in my life, when I was like, oh, I wish I'd said something. I wish I stood up and, you know, said like, that's not right, that's not cool. But Barb is someone who will always do that, which I think is really great. I think it's really important to stand up and say, I don't think that's cool.
Yeah, I think that's true.
But that's a great question. It's like, I feel like characters and stories, you kind of try to build them around like a core idea or a core philosophy. Like Dan, we were talking about the sausage peddler. Like his philosophy essentially is he wants to make money. Like he's kind of like, he's a merchant, and his path in the story is really he wants to make money, and he thinks he has a moral outlook in terms of humans are good and monsters are bad, but his core idea is he's always going to be pushing his cart around and trying to make money. Like that's kind of his building block, his inner philosophy. And like Porkchop is a little bit similar in that he's selfish, right? He like Dan was saying, he wants to take a nap. He's always hungry. He usually eats first. He might sneak stuff. He might get up in the middle of the night and finish off the cake that was saved for later. But he's also good, and he also doesn't like hurting people. It really bothers him when people get hurt, which I think is the kind of the core to his being a hero. I don't think he would ever be quite as good as Barb. Like Barb is selfless. Like Barb will really put herself in harm. But it's funny, in book 3, you really get to see like Porkchop. You get to learn a little bit about his backstory, and you get to see him really become a hero, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then I think Barb's core idea is, like we were saying, she's like really good. She's like this good person that wants to make the world a better place, and she's kind of like pushed into the world given these certain set of views that she's kind of questioning. So I think her thing is she's good, but she's trying to figure out like what's going on and kind of trying to unravel how the world is how do you make the world a better place, and can you do it with swords? Can you what's the best way to do it? Maybe it's not with swords. I don't know. There's something cool about a warrior realizing wars aren't that great, right? Like fighting is not that great.
Yeah, I feel like that's a huge part of Barb's arc, is that she's like, all she wants to do is be a berserker and kick butt. And then her whole thing is like, well, maybe there's a better way to do this, Like maybe that's kind of almost even like Barb's mantra. It's like, maybe there's a better way.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the third book is a big climactic battle between her and Witchhead, and it's going to be interesting to see like how that battle unfolds. Like is she able to defeat Witchhead, and how can you defeat someone who's basically unbeatable? It's going to be kind of cool to see. how that
Yeah.
happens. I also kind of like, we haven't talked about Thunder yet.
Oh
But
yeah.
Thunder
we
is
should.
totally, yeah, Thunder's kind of this fun character. I mean, he's totally if He-Man and Thor, had a younger brother or something. There's a lot of He-Man, a lot of Thor in Thunder.
He reminds me of Jason and I. He reminds me we had a coach named Grover who was kind of just this like humorless like guy, but at his heart had a really big heart. Like deep down, he was kind of a softie, and I feel like Thunder is a little bit like that, right? It's like he's like one of those parents who's always like, I mean, he's not actually Barb's parent, but he kind of takes that role in a way where he like wants everyone to be safe and wants everyone to do the right thing. So it's like he comes off very serious and very like severe, but he's got this like soft core in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. He's totally Grover. He was our lacrosse coach. He totally was tough and scary, but he totally had a soft side, and he really cared. Like Thunder totally cares. It's funny. It's like Thunder always comes out on the bottom. Like he never seems to win. He always gets defeated, which is kind of awesome too, I guess. But yeah, no, Thunder really cares about Barb, and he doesn't want her to get hurt. Like he's really kind of protective. Like Dan was saying, he kind of takes over the parent role because I mean, another core thing that happened to Barb was she lost her mom when she still needed her. She was still a kid, and her mom went off to kind of fight this war, and she ended up disappearing. And a lot of what Barb's going through is this kind of like trying to find her mom, trying to get her mom back, and she's kind of totally upsets. It's really upsetting for Barb. And you realize too that Thunder and Raven knew each other. Raven is Barb's mom, and when Raven disappeared, she'd made Thunder promise that he would keep Barb safe, if anything ever happened to her.
Yeah, it does feel like everyone in Bailiwick, at least all these people in the story, they're all trying really hard to keep Barb safe. And like all Barb wants and needs is to kind of be let loose and like take care of business, There's kind of an irony in that.
It's totally like, as Dan and I are parents, we've got kids, and as a parent, you want to protect your kids from stuff. You want to and you have to, especially when they're little and those run across the street without looking. Like that's totally.
Some might say that's the whole job.
Yeah. But it's like at a certain point, your kid has to go to college or graduate high school and get a job, and it's like your kid is not going to be a kid forever. Nobody's a kid forever. Yeah. Dan and I tried as hard as we could to stay kids forever. We get to draw comic books for a living, but yeah, eventually, you're not a kid. You kind of have to look out for yourself. And I think that's a hard thing for parents to wrap their heads around as a parent.
It is this like constant conflict, right? Where you're like, what's going to keep this kid safe? Like keeping them out of danger or preparing them for danger, right? And it's like, I feel like that's kind of like the big thing where everyone in Bailiwick is trying to keep Barb out of danger, but she's like, no, I'm prepared for it. Like I'm ready to face it.
Yeah, she's ready.
Isn't that kind of what growing up is, right? It's like you're saying you're ready for it.
Yeah, and there's going to be stuff you're never ready for everything, right? But you kind of trust yourself, and you figure it out. But yeah, I think as a parent, or Raven, at least in the story, doesn't see how tough Barb is. Like she doesn't realize that Barb is super capable and she went toe to toe with Grom in book 1, and she's super tough.
Yeah, and in book 2, I think it's Franny Flamefingers who kind of sees it. Like Franny sees like who Barb really is, and it's like that kind of inspires her to come back into action, right? To like kind of come out of retirement and like take up the mantle again and like try to solve this problem.
Yeah, totally. Like Franny Flamefingers is part of the Council of Wise Wizards. Each wizard gets in like an elemental spell. They're kind of like this bickering bureaucracy with magic hats. But after this war's gone on so long, they've kind of disbanded and given up hope. And Franny kind of represents that, like that kind of like, some people just give up. They're just like, the world is too big a mess. Like, I can't even deal with it anymore. And she always wanted to learn how to juggle, so she got really good at juggling, and then that was it. She doesn't want to fix things anymore. Fixing things is exhausting. Dan's getting his house fixed right now. It's exhausting.
It's really hard. Sometimes there's hammering happening at 6 o'clock at night. You realize
totally.
what's going to happen.
But it's like, I don't know. So I think Franny Flame Fingers is cool because she's really relatable. I think we've all felt like that. We've all been like, I can't do it anymore. But Barb inspires her. Like, that's kind of one of Barb's secret superpowers, is she's super inspiring. She kind of leads by example.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. I love the light shining from the ghost blade. It's really cool.
It's kind of funny because like the first book is all about the shadow blade, which is like this really powerful magic sword. But like I feel like the ghost blade is even cooler. Like I'm so psyched about like seeing the ghost blade really get to like kick into gear in this book. I think it's really fun.
It'd be awesome if ever we get merchandise and we get to sell a ghost blade and it's just an invisible bag. It's like the ghost blade's in there somewhere. You got to find it. You can't see it. It's like a ghost. You can't see ghosts.
Maybe you don't have enough courage. Maybe you're the problem.
It's $12.99. It's an empty bag. Yeah, no, it's awesome. There's a really funny review in Kirkus who was like, there's not one but two magic swords in this story. It's like, what's better than one magic sword? Two magic swords. Dan and Jason figured it out.
We're gonna have to get those invisible swords in the store.
Yeah, sure.
We're gonna send them out.
Yeah, that was incredible to watch the process of how these characters really come to life on the page and how quickly you guys are able to do that. I mean, the process for you from start to finish for one of these comics, how long does it typically take?
Like close to a year, I think. I think it's almost like each page is a day.
Yeah, I think it is actually a little bit less than a year. I feel like we kind of do like 3 months to outline it and write it, and then 3 months to thumb it, and then 3 months or so to like clean it up and color it. So it's like a little bit less than a year.
But then 3 months to redo stuff we messed up.
Yeah, totally. There's all the fixing of the mistakes.
Yeah.
Wow.
3 months to start over.
Yeah, which I'm sure you love.
Yeah.
What inspired your characters? So with Barb, is she modeled after like the spirit of someone that you both know or knew, a sister or a mom, or is it just a compilation of people, or where did it come from?
Yeah, well, when we were first coming up with the story, it's like I remember we wanted to have a hero who like our kids were going to be able to look to and be like when they're playing on the playground, they're going to be like, oh, that's me. Like I want to be Barb, like I remember that was a big part of it. And then we were also like, when we first came up with it, our kids were quite a bit younger. They were probably like 6 or 7. And I remember in New York constantly being like, telling them to calm down, like on the subway or in a museum. It's like, you can't be too crazy. You can't be too wild. Like you got to calm down. So we were like, oh, what if we had a character and her power was that she was wild? It's like that's part of her power, is that she has this energy. So like we thought that was really cool. So then like, you kind of like layer all that stuff on top of each other and the character starts to build and did these designs, and Jason came up with this like crazy hair, this like awesome hair, and then so we started telling the story, but then we realized, like probably not till we were done with book 1, that our art teacher in high school, her name was Barb, and she had this crazy hair, and like she was amazing. She was this amazing teacher who was like, she was kind of one of the first people who was like, you guys are good at this. Like you should do this. Like here's some space and some time to, play around and figure this out. And it's like, it feels like kind of through our subconscious, like she came back and was like, like bubbled up into Barb. So yeah, it's like a bunch of different things kind of like all piled up on top of each other.
It's like she took on a being herself as you continued through your process. Were there any warrior characters that you guys thought of and maybe started to draw but then didn't use in the book?
Oh, that's a cool question. Gosh, there's so many characters. I feel like every single character we've thought of has ended up in that, especially in Moghorn. There's so many monster drawings and stuff in there.
But no, there were like, I remember like, so yeah, remember we did this whole backstory at the beginning with Barb and her sister and like on the root farm, on the mud root farm. It's funny, and we've done this a couple times too. So like when we first were writing the first Barb book, like there was gonna be this whole backstory with Barb on the farm where she grew up. And you do see a little bit of that in book one, like you do get little glimpses of her on the farm, but like we had to cut it all out because we just didn't have time with it. But then it became like a big part of Barb's history. And in book two, you really get to see it. Like you really get to see the farm and see how Barb first meets Thunder and how she first like kind of sneaks away to join the Berserkers. Yeah. And it was kind of a similar thing in book two. We were gonna have all these bits where you go to these different realms. Like there's these different realms where these wizards are from. And we kind of had to cut it because there wasn't enough time, but it like you see glimpses of it, you know, and it starts to create backstory for these other characters and like where they've come from and who they are. So it's like, it feels like we do build all this stuff that we don't end up using, but it informs the story and kind of makes for a bigger, more fun world.
It totally. It's like Jurassic Park. It's like, what did the T-Rex eat? Well, you don't have time to really, well, I guess it ate a goat, but I don't know, maybe that's not a good example, but yeah, no, there's all these other dinosaurs you don't have time to show. And I guess it's kind of similar with Bailiwick.
But who is that goat's mom? Like, that's what we really want to know.
Who owned the goat? Who's like, wait, where's the goat?
That's, yeah, see, that process must be very, what we don't see, that takes time too.
Yeah, it's totally true. There's like, I feel like there's a lot of like writing and figuring out that doesn't necessarily go into the story, but it like tells us what's happening. You know what I mean? It like kind of fills in some of the blanks for us. So we know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember I had an art teacher at RISD and he said, you draw as much with your eraser as you do with your pencil. And it's totally true. You like write so much stuff and then you just have to delete it, or you write so much stuff. And like Dan said, it's like something will grow out of that actually ends up in the story. But what you erase is just as important what you draw, I think.
Yeah, wow, that's great advice for our young aspiring authors and comics here. Can you guys give us any further insight as to what we can expect for book 3, if you're allowed?
Yeah, well, one thing we're definitely doing in book 3 is like book 1 kind of had a cliffhanger ending, book 2 has a cliffhanger ending. Book 3 does not have a cliffhanger ending. It totally wraps up the story with the climactic battle with Witchhead and Barb happened. So we didn't want to like keep kicking the can down the road. We wanted it to be, kind of like a trilogy. But there can totally be more stories after this. But this will feel like, I think, the ending. I don't know.
Oh, we can't wait.
Yeah, totally. And it does feel like a lot of stuff like that is set up in book 1 and book 2, like even more so than just like the Witchhead arc, but like, kind of Barb's mom and Thunder and where Porkchop comes from and why Porkchop is the way that he is, like all that stuff gets addressed. And book 3, it does a lot of fun stuff with like kind of, I don't know, answering questions and then asking more questions. And yeah, I think it'll be a real fun romp.
Oh, we can't wait. And I'm sure there's a battle brewing. So we're excited to see what happens there. We're almost at time, but I would like to wrap with one more question. If Barb was here with us tonight and she could tell her readers one piece of advice, what would she tell them?
Yeah. Do you want to take this one, Jason?
I know what we're going to say.
So, okay, this is my advice. I mean, this is the advice that Barb gave me, which is, you got to do it. Like you have to, like, you can't always ask permission. It's like, sometimes you have to like take a step forward and do the scary thing. It's like, I feel like Jason and I were like, we wanted to we wanted to tell stories. So we were asking lots of people permission, like, can we do this? Can we do that? Can we do this? And most of the time people say no, which is a part of being an artist. It's like you're constantly getting rejected. And then finally we were like, you know what? We're just going to make this book. No one's going to pay us to do it. We're just going to do it and we'll see how it works out. And it's been amazing. You know, it's been like, it's because we made this first little mini comic that we got hooked up with Simon & Schuster, and they gave us an opportunity to do these full color graphic novels, but it was because we just decided to do it. So I feel like that was Barb's kind of gift to me. And I think that's what she would say here. It's like, sometimes you just have to do it, you know?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think we needed Barb's advice, and luckily we listened to it. It's like, you're stronger than you realize. I think you can do it. You can totally do it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy Barb is a part of the story, and we all have her now. And if you don't have her yet on your bookshelf, you need to have her on your bookshelf. So Dan and Jason, I just want to thank you both for spending time with us tonight. We're so grateful to you guys. And congratulations again on the superb second installment of the series. So we can't wait to see what's reading around the corner for Miss Barb. And everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. Barb and the Ghost Blade is out now and available for purchase at both RJ Julia and Wesley and RJ Julia. Thank you all. And thank you for supporting your local independent bookstores. We could not do what we do without you. It means the world to us. So have a great night, you all, and happy reading.
Thank you so much. This was fantastic.